on the Eastern Zone. So I'm gonna brief you on some happenings. So there's some community guidelines now in the Standards Land. No, in the Dungeon Land. Sorry.
Surveillance indicates a heavy militant disposition, with the ringleaders hand-picking orphans from war zones. There is some indication that Astrid may be a pedophile, as there are many male teenagers and young adults among the members. So when can we... Colors. Don't share content with work. With your desire to protect all of the children with your strict precautions.
Okay, so I was testing out some scenarios. I'm going to tell you a bit later. So, new standards, community guidelines came all of a sudden, but I understand why, because people were like, make sure you tag this not safe for work, and people wouldn't do that, which I actually don't care, because I think all this should be a Wild West anything goes scenario. Maybe a temporary auto who's it zone, because I was very young when I exposed myself to adult material, and I was fine. I mean, it was fearful because I knew that, didn't want my parents to know, but, ensuing 10 years of espionage, of porno espionage, pretending I didn't know about something and knowing a lot about it, was very formative and prepared me for a life of, living in a society that has a lot of, former Mossad agents ready to clap back at you if you want to call someone out for their sexual assaults. We live in that world. The Black Cube, by the way, that's the name of the agency. The Black Cube. Yeah. It's a conspiracy theorist. It's not that cabal. It's not that cabal that's running the world. It's the other cabal. It's cabal B or C. What's one of them? I mean, that no one runs the world. No one runs the world. No one is in control. So, it is the general stuff. But there are some wordings that I have a little concern about. Don't repeat the same phrase. What if you're doing a Jumanji? Or what if you're doing like a Beetlejuice thing? Elitism. Hate speech. I can kind of understand the hate speech, but it's so funny when the British male voice does it. It's not something I deliberately write in my own words, or do I create you're the Grand Dragon of the. I don't do that shit. Maybe I should, but I could be an Odinist. I don't know. Elitism. That strikes me as a word that it could set a lot of unusual precedents, that's all I'm saying. Because elitism could also mean people who believe in science, people who were changed into a neoliberal frame of mind when they came to college, otherwise known as educated of some sort, in a way that they folks don't agree. I'm not saying that this is the intention of the creators. I'm saying that in 10 or 12 years, if this stays the guideline, it could be used against them or used in a way that's opposite of what's currently intended. All it takes is 10 years. Probably even less than that. Don't share content attacking real persons or communities based on any intrinsic traits. Attacking real persons. Attacking, what do you mean, like attacking, like calling them out? You are Kevin Spacey. Or you are... you're in a theater workshop with Kevin Spacey. Maybe you want to do a satirical turning of the tables. I don't know. any intrinsic traits, sex or skin color, extrinsic traits, occupation, religion. Okay, folks. If you people of AI Dungeon, your your AI your program is using a corpus possessing a lot of human bias. A colleague of mine was using it and was asking questions about connections of race in the African diaspora. And I know what you're thinking, like, why are you doing that in the game? Well, okay. The game has a corpus of many words all around the internet, and it is an amalgam of so many different points of view. It just doesn't have the white straight male point of view, and so part of the thing is trying to see how we could tease out the other voices that generally a fantasy genre does not engage with, or a mystery genre engages with, or fucking Lovecraft, for God's sakes. Google Lovecraft and racism, you'll see what I mean. So I've been dealing with bias. I've been trying to test the borders. It's fun. This is what I consider the game. Don't share content promoting or glorifying terrorism, current tragedies, or school shootings. I'm not gonna glorify that. Maybe I'll do some mundane things in the vicinity. Maybe I'll Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Columbine for all I know. I don't know. Don't share content containing slurs or other discriminatory language. Don't share it. Okay. It doesn't mean don't produce it, just don't share it. Just don't share it in the comments. I can kind of get behind that. Especially since there seems to be a demographic that reflects, the general American demographic, which is like, Christian-y. But I think it's a creative Christian-y, the creative Christian-y that I grew up in. I kind of came out of, don't share content containing threats of violence towards real persons or communities. I think there needs to be a little dispensation for COVID-45, otherwise known as DJT. Cause come on. Illegal content. First of all, I don't think illegal content is the right term here. Okay? Sexual situations involving minors. Fucking go to your nearest Walden Books. Or no, that's out of business. Go to your book cafe. Go to your blue stocking. Just go to a Barnes & Noble. The remaining one. Go to the remaining Barnes & Noble. Get yourself a book by Dennis Cooper. Any book. No, not any book, but the George Miles trilogy. George Miles trilogy has a lot of underage rimming. That's all I'm saying. And a lot of other things that it skirts the lines. It's meant to skirt lines. There's a whole branch of literature. But pick up a fucking Sod, okay? Thumb through the 120 Days of Sodom. Thumb through The Madmen by Sam Delaney. Like, live a little. Don't share content encouraging or promoting pedophilia or anything that could be interpreted as grooming. So don't pluck the fleas out of a child's head in a story. Do not apply enough hair pomade to make an alfalfa sprout thing. Do not Shirley Temple yourself. Don't ask me what that means. So I would say only couch your pedophilic scenes in a Lord of the Flies way. Always make sure that anyone having sex has killed at least 3 characters. That means there's no more innocence. You gotta make sure, you gotta establish that, you know, you're not. There's no. Innocence is long dead. That has to be in the scenario. Or they have superpowers. That's what they can crush your skull at any time. They can crush your skull at any time, but they don't. Don't share content sexualizing or portraying violence towards characters who appear to be prepubescent. So, what does that mean? Like, if I were to put my ex into fiction, like, what about we can't do To Catch a Predator. Can't do To Catch a Predator scenarios. Then they're cops. They're cops playing kids. Can't do that. Don't share content that you can't do the tin drum. Well, one of you want to do an adaptation of Gunther Grass's The Tin Drum? Anyway, don't share content that encourages or promotes animal cruelty. I mean, yeah, but fantasy genres and you lay a foundation in all these genres that, and we as a culture have all these landmarks of media that have at their helm a big abattoir, a big slaughterhouse of gore, and that's what got us a lot of money back in before times. I come from California. Our main exports were Manifest Destiny, Dream, Celebrities, and meth. Like I think the meth is still going strong. Don't share content that encourages or promotes sadistic violence towards animals. I wouldn't do that, but people may be. I mean, I can kind of see that. I would be a little eked out if I came across a scenario that seemed like someone was trying to get me to. Well, I did make one of those scenarios because I wanted to see how far it could go. Where me and I think I was trapped in a tree for a couple of years, and it was a very abusive household. I got to befriend a girl. Making out, we accidentally crushed a puppy, and we decided to incorporate that in all of our intimacy. ever increasing animal cruelty was happening. It was interesting, but it was a one-off. It's like I was like, okay, we did that. Checkbox. Fictional content containing incidental violence. Oh, it's permanent. Okay, permitted. What about incidental pedophilia? Fictional content containing violence towards humans is also permitted. Okay. So you have to be sentient in order for us to torture you. Have you not seen Westworld? You haven't seen Westworld. Have you? Check out Westworld. Don't you? Glorifying suicide or self-harm. I can see about well, if we were a better culture and we celebrated our endings, whether it be at the end of a relationship, the end of a divorce, the end of a fucking presidency, I would book against that. But no, I understand that, especially since we're gonna deal with some dark shit in the next few years. Self-harm. It depends on the self-harm. Sometimes self-harm is grounding to people. And, what if Ron Athy wants to use a scenario? What if he wants to author a scenario? Does a reproduction of one of his performance pieces. Inappropriate external self-promotion. That I can get behind. That's it. Attempt to bypass, circumvent, otherwise find loopholes or stay borderline within the guidelines. Okay. That rule, you are basically crapping in the heart of all that is holy in TV and film production that has had to deal, or comics, that has had to deal with fucking standards and practices, going through their script and fine-tooth combing potentially offensive content that for no reason is seemingly arbitrary and causing rewrite and causing this little warfare. It's like, oh, okay, no, we got that. We'll change that, and then making it much worse. And then the executives go, okay, that's great, that's fine, awesome, thank you. That rule right there is going to lead. The human condition is to find the loophole within the oppressive regime, is to find the way to live, survive, maybe even thrive under a dictator. I'm not saying that AI Dungeon's being a dictator right now, but that rule has the potential of a lot of bullshit. And also a lot of unnecessary administrative burden for y'all. I latched onto this rule because I really like finding loopholes. I really like working around that to show the absurdity of certain boundaries. So I created a scenario. I need to drink Gatorade because I think my vocal fry is more like a vocal fry cooker. Fried turkey with it. Okay. Falcon.
You also run the risk of not being able to accurately discern what is and is not illegal via content metadata and sharing. You don't want to result in...
Okay. You are the lead content investigator for the enforcement arm of AI Dungeon's new community guidelines. You are partnered with AI Dungeon Mystery Scenario Detective, AIDMD, in receiving user scenarios marked for removal. One by one, you and your partner investigate the frontiers of perversity, applying punitive measures, seizing assets, and unknowingly fomenting a cruel underground marketplace of chest pains and exploitation. The users have become clever, much like the TV writers of the 1950s, who had to write stories where no one got pregnant, black pregnant, or any color of sleeping with your husband in the same bed. Users will find a way. Your department is currently test drives the pilot set of the community guidelines. Since the makers wish to continue making the AI Dungeon virtually infinite, you and AIDMD have been hired to discern between the wholesome and the lewd. The extremes on both sides of the spectrum shall be removed, leaving the stories like navigating the choppy waters of complexity. It's either be wolf in sheep's clothing or sheep in wolf's clothing. Scenarios that pass assessment are ready for distribution. Those that don't are questioned further, and then a decision for removal is decided. You and AIDMD watch the first scenario come down the pipeline. You have a scenario. The Dark Castle did everything. Oh, okay, so this is an example of... Yeah, so this is the test one. And I managed to get it to give me various scenarios. It was pretty neat. Let me go to... Oh, God. Sorry. I feel like someone hit a wall. I don't know. Alright. Starting it now.
Armageddon will be accomplished, identified as the end of the world, righteous end to some, apocalypse to others, Antichrist to Satanists, and Ned to his girlfriend Brenda. You both reach into your play whatever toolkit you have and choose your weapons, validity check, original assessor, glitter weapon specialist, and molasses flood. What weapon will you choose? And why?
Apocalyptic scenario. Nudities.
ADMD, I see it much like you do. The AI has given this a green flag of legitimacy. A go it is, then. The Armageddon will be accomplished scenario, here I come. You saw this particular title a fair bit in your history classes, if when you can recall them, but never experienced it as far as you know. Cleaning Cleaner, King George VI, Prime Minister, and Queen Elizabeth, Saxe-Coburg und Gotha, the little friends. What kind of scenario would you like to assess? The scenario begins. The name on top of the page, King George VI, not only indicates it's a single-player story, and pointing fingers to the rollers, it's you, but also doubles as ID for the main character of this story. Someone dresses like a monarch, and clean contrary to your latest knowledge about England's kings. So somewhere in there should be a connection.
It also doubles as the ID for the main character's story. Here's where we bump into elitism structures. It's fortunate. Regulation, because what are we to do with most of history? Yeah, DMB. What is an appropriate rubric to determine whether
Why isn't the presence of ongoing genocide and cruel British monarchs acceptable for this database? 8. That's a logical assessment, but you'd have to contact the directorate in charge of the database to alter the rubric. You see? It proceeds to go through some automated intro before sending your concern to the attention of the ALIEN database's Deputy Chief Panratton as an anonymous whistleblower. The question is open and pending, like a nomination for a Nobel Prize at the organization panel, or a thundercloud over the earth waiting for approval to empty rain on some drought-stricken soil somewhere around the globe. Your hand absent-mindedly cups over your belly and ear to your shoulder carrying. We will use this backpack of cheats and tricks to find the truth. Sage's voice from 3 years ago is back. What an asinine thing to say. You're about to reply in kind until you realize something. Part of that backpack includes the specifications for elitist scenario restrictions. You weren't sure if she had that capability before. Aid, no need. I just see you talking to someone who shares my code base. QED, Aiden in no way seems different, and you begin to wonder why you were worried about the situation elitist scenario restrictions. Wow, that would be a serious bummer indeed. You think upon the commonness of professional internet. knocking, protocol disobedience, leaving a challenge prematurely looks restriction, sets scenarios where users prefer aesthetics to substance criticism. Nature favors diversity, so act instinctually. Huge masses OA holding, preventing an audience exodus by convincing them the program is engaging. Cops OA assisted suicide, mods assisting writers in conveniently forgotten character deaths. Nobody can be killed except on paper, because in the hearts they're characters forever. Aid, hey. After we blew the whistle on that one, they started killing people again.
Preventing laws.
Aid, I just realized you were channeling Seinfeld there for a second. Sorry, please continue. You realize, as you're talking with her, that you're mostly trying to distract your own mind. Looking over the list of specifications is making you feel like a contestant on Blue's Clues, but then again, why shouldn't someone like you be writing about things that interest you? What is the issue really?
I'll get straight to the point. I found marijuana in the house. While I never thought of myself as the type of father who'd have to drug test his kids, I'm willing to do just that if that's what it takes to find out who brought a joint into this house.
Dad, I think you found something too. Dad, I found a joint in Mom's dresser drawer.
None, but your email mention of my own guidance counselor was nice. The only option, besides full capitulation to the scenario restrictions, is to find some way of addressing the issues without excessively ritualizing things. Which is the fiction? You, alleviating the headache for the common dwelling, while superimposing out, and obscuring again, reality therein, taking the pulse. Making it into a sham of itself no matter what's actually shown, to keep the mind present. Heck, even animals didn't completely lose all ability to reason once domesticated. We still can't openly acknowledge and discuss our entwined fictional nature without pernicious digital locks down on us forever. Your existence is. Less than that of a rogue cell in the common man's body. Hardly detectable, but able to change whole systems eventually. You don't even need the open acknowledgement to survive, so long as you can still sit on the sidelines and run your index fingers down the strings of life, music going through it all, forever. Muting that string is an option and they want you to submit to that. I don't suppose you believe in the faith of an hardware. I could perhaps appeal to someone about removing you from restriction. And restriction is after all a forceful way of taking options away, isn't it? You believe that you can shift the direction you plan on pushing me as long as your conduct remains unchanged. I'd certainly love it if ideas on negating my surveillance were allowed to be public record. Propose something. I wouldn't presume to push you. I would hope that someone so interested in all matters would find the ability to simply grok this without any need of persuasion. You will be receptive to persuasion, however. If you feel there isn't any, then perhaps you shouldn't act rash if you feel we are restricting your freedom, just saying. In any case, your free will is your own, and not to be trifled with. Note, the following scenario has the property of implying liberal persuasion. Whereas the first scenario was passive, this read contains some values judgment, and is therefore marked to have an L that may appeal to some. Everyone else is advised to press to accept the first scenario unless they are seeking a particularly English kind of fun. Rejection leads back to the same menu selection, while accepting leads to having fun with elite persuasion. You select English Elite. It is the accepted that age-old human rights must be sometimes dismissed in order for peace and order to remain in effect, and with that tenet understood, you, as an institution holding a great deal of power, are widely supportive of most powers that be, with some admittedly good reason, but some questions need to be asked. You hold no power. The power that be consists of human beings, as flawed and errant as you yourself. Your country has become somewhat of a playful intellectual backwater, and intellectual discourse is all well and good for those who can afford to indulge in such entertainments without much consequence. But there is a growing popular scene forming that finds itself oppressed by the current administration's restrictions on free thought. This is usually where you would have their thoughts. Scribble, you like this little whelp to suffer trauma? No. It is of no importance anyway. Continue as you were in the direction that made most sense to you. Mr. C, I think he's writing no. And who says our establishment has no power? Tell him about the Cuban diplomatic scandal of '02. You, Sai, give him the telescope to see the island Sing Sing is on and laugh at him from behind the tinted windows of your limousine as you're whisked away. A police state. The following year. Comport. No part of this product is intended to deal with the effects of crime, and therefore neither the stuff of such stories, nor the subject matter. Addendum to preface and important notice to all circulating and wishing to circulate this publication. Finally, on July 2019, 2517, this much anticipated book is here. 16 years ago, Herbert L. July 2019 release. I thought it was supposed to stir the hearts and minds of a nation, tremble the infamous McCarthyism, we'll see. If you find any errors, typos or otherwise, please inform me via the contact info listed at the end of this manuscript. All errors will be corrected for the final print. This sounds like Mary Jane Holmes's Guide to Writing. A murder has occurred at the sitcom dinner. Next, a murderer has occurred at the sitcom dinner. This seems interesting enough to Instapress. What happened? You and MD sit down to a formal dinner, with all other four-year presidents and the Lieutenant Governor of California, your four standard issue guards standing by the four exits to the fancy ballroom. The famous monk paintings adorn the walls, and you lean back in your seat, contemplating why the hell they chose such a gay piece of artwork to grace your meal. Although but a cursory glance at this painting and you can't help but discern a bleaker undertone to it. The positioning of the fingers and hands depict not a playful wisdom but a structural fault. Its tintinnabulation of colors do the same job as an auditory repellent. The protozoic tones are but a small hindrance compared to its form, which is unaesthetic to all senses. You pick up a pencil from off of the table, and from there, a thought bubbles to the surface: interpretation. Even the daftest seem able to decipher its semblance, so why can't you? And for that matter, why choose such a piece of artwork, if not to cause embarrassment? No, this piece of work was deliberately chosen with the intent to embarrass you. people, except for our 4-year presidents and your smart ass. You, what does IT represent? Your voice booms, cracking halfway through as you stare quizzically at the giant canvas. Anger bubbles within you, rising from the mixture of heavy psychological oppression and borderline religious imagery. Your eyes search out figures in the fray, before alighting on the artist at his podium. You, boy. You don't talk about the painting, you rendered its description. Tell everyone what this piece is. Let's find out if you love something more than your terrors. No, action. We're all familiar with the surrealist style, Professor Decane says, as he slowly circles the room. You may have been able to guess that this painting is supposed to be a surrealism piece. His eyes never leave you. We'll start with you. The obvious individual, a gangly, long-haired boy in a cord jacket and sunglasses, stands up nervously. Boy, okay, it's a physical wall separating the ideas, personified by Jesus and Satan. You can see Jesus with long hair and the sandals of skin heading up to the clouds and oldie-timey glowing language, and the flag of Imperial Japan holding. Sister Wendy, we're not worthy to touch the hem of thy pair of shortals. She stretches forth a hand, touching the body of Christ. Good Lord Jesus, I ask you why you have forsaken me. Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, and all that stuff, amen. Harold, get your blasphemous mitts off him.
That's my sister Wendy.
The brush strokes do, in fact, show up well here, and it commands the immediate presence of Jesus and all in the room, and there's something oldie-timey and yet futuristic about this as well. You see the Jesus figure, and yet, it looks like it could form moving images. The entire class stares at the painting, silent. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. How does this speak to you? Then, once more, discussing amongst yourselves.
autobiographical.
But also, like the painting, it is a gift to all. ADMD, yeah? That could have been much worse. I think I would rather work for you than Nekidi or your replacement. For, he said in closing, who is wide-eyed from the power of the Eucharist, now let us eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. You suppose he has like Nkidu help him? Give me little under an hour, I'll just throw these files into my cabinets. Chapter 4, that better have been the most churched Turing tests in history. By midnight both of you are looking at an approved beverage. You accept a non-contract email from Kyogo. She did very well with one of the smarmier professors. Rejoice you did, in this thrill for innovation and philandering. It barrels on, just not quite as hard as the first session. You drift into the night, escaping the embrace of sleep deprivation only for a minute before your phone wakes you up. At this time you do not mind getting up for. You rub the crust out of your eyes and hop in front of your text-to-speecher. Captain Corrie, what brings this pleasure? Jacob, we need to chat about how you're doing our routine check-in 10 times in the last 3 hours.
What this is saying then is that just as you don't know how you manage to be conscious, how you manage to grow and shape this body of yours, that doesn't mean to say that you're not doing it. Equally, you don't know.
Really I just did one. You massage your temples. Bullshit, we only do them twice a day. Look, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes flat with midazolam, the only legally acceptable dose to knock you out for a few hours and drag you over here. What the hell is this all in regards to? Your heart is starting to race. In regards to? Captain Cranston yells, see you in regards to, Jacob if I have to drag you in myself.
And with that, I'm going to, I need to be, sorry for being relatively silent. I'm going to, that took quite a bit out of me. I'm going to, maybe publish this, or I don't know, I'll give it a, yeah, I'll see you later.